welcome to PRT. That's short for Paranormal Round Table. I'm your host, Josh Turner, also known as Wolf, and I'm with my co-host, Tony. He likes to go by...
Likes to. It's just what it is. It's Mushu. It's just what it is.
Mushu. Yes, he likes to call himself Mushu. No one else is calling him that, folks, but he calls himself that, so you guys can decide if you want to call him that.
Hey, that's not true, all right? When I'm by myself, some of the voices in my head tell me, like, oh, Mushu.
Didn't you call yourself Hawk in high school for like a week or something like that?
No, I've never done that. That's
I
weird.
thought your sister said something. You had some weird nickname you gave yourself for like a week and nobody else called you that. Like you were into skating. Because remember you used to carry a skateboard around, but you never played with it. You just carried it around.
Yeah, because it was a busted up skateboard. I would skate the other boards, but not when I go to high school. But I would just walk around with that one. It was because one of the wheels was janky, and I could never skate it.
I felt really bad. I wanted to get you a skateboard, but then I was told not to.
I would have loved that because I was walking around with a tape deck, basically.
So instead, I bought him telescopes and microscopes and all kinds of other scientific-y stuff that he never did anything with. We played with the telescope one night. Now, do you remember that night? Mm-hmm. And those wolves or whatever it was started howling?
Yeah, we were.
They weren't coyotes. I don't know what that was. It was creepy. But you, Zane, and Anthony were just too busy looking at the stars. You didn't even care that Dogman was out there screeching in the woods.
Yeah, but,
We're out the overlook. Folks, DasWolfman88@gmail.com. That's my email address. Send me your crazy stories. DasWolfman88@gmail.com and PRTpodcast.com. That's our website. Yeah. We have artwork up there. You can look at the archives, all of our shows. What else we got? Merchandise. You can buy you something. Buy yourself something nice. That's right.
From us. Actually, from you, but, from us a little bit.
Buy yourself something nice. So what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to get into that in a minute, but first I wanted to remind everyone to go and join Paranormal Round Table group that we're in, because you can stay up to breast on a lot of stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's also where we do our raffle. Yeah,
we do a raffle. We're going to be giving away an autographed book, another Linda Godfrey book. So if anybody wants to get in on the raffle, you will go to the post that we make about the show on Paranormal Round Table and leave a comment.
Yep.
And
just say like your favorite part, or
an impartial third party will pick someone.
Yep.
So that being said, just go and do that on Facebook. Let us know.
Also, check out the page too. I mean, let's not forget that. Show the page some love. It's a different entity
the page
from the group.
Paranormal Roundtable. Please go and like the page. We need help getting some likes on that page. Please show some love on that.
Yeah. We appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So tonight we're going to jump around a little bit. We're going to talk about some stuff. I'm going to start off with a little reading an email. I get a lot of emails, folks. I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of messages. But one of the things is the emails are small sometimes. I'll get it really small, and I'll think, man, it's an interesting story, but it's not really enough to make a huge story. Because you really can't make a really big story unless you talk to the people. But I got one here, and I don't have permission at this point to say her name on there. So I'm not going to use the name. I usually just leave everybody anonymous, just because it's
safer.
But it's just safer, But I got this email, and it says here, in relation to episode 13, I just wanted to let you know that entities can grow in size over time. My adopted sister grew up with an entity that used to sleep on the bed with her every night. It started off the size of an adult rabbit and grew over the years to the size of a large dog. It had opposable thumbs. It attacked her one night when she had had enough of it and told it to get lost. It stopped when she apologized. Anyways, that is just one story of a multitude that happened to her. And I've also had my fair share of paranormal experiences all through my life as well. So that's crazy. I mean... and she goes on to talk about, some other stuff, but I'm going to try and get in touch with this person and find out what the stories that have happened to them. We may hear from her again.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I 100% believe that. I mean, because when you feed on something, it has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So what if this entity was a obviously malicious one because of the fact that it attacked her, was feeding off her for some reason, then I could see it growing in size and actually, becoming more either powerful or, just is able to affect more from the fact that, you know, she's from what she said, it was a young age that it was sleeping with her all the way up until, you know, many years down the road. That's a lot to be feeding off or whatever it was eating.
Well, Chief talked about when he lived in the house in South Austin with us that he thought that the entity that was jumping in and out of the mirror from episode 2, and then of course we talk about it with the episodes where Chief comes on and we talk.
Yeah, the little imp thing.
That it was growing. That he thought it would grow. That's weird. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty creepy, dude.
Especially with you guys, though. Were you guys like scared of it, or was it? More
I ran into it in the hallway.
Was it like a creeped out, or more like scared?
Because both at different times.
Oh, really?
I mean, like I was there alone by myself one time, and I was in the corner of my eye, and then one day, the first time I ever saw it dead on, I saw it, but like I looked right at it, and it was just like it leapt out of I saw it, but the way it was leaping into the mirror, and it was like racing down the hallway. Like I just saw like it come into the doorway where you could see into the hallway, you know, from the den.
Yeah, and
it jumped into the mirror, and I was like, wow. And I was by myself in the house, and it scared me.
No, you're by yourself. That makes sense. You know?
I took a video of myself with snot bubbles coming out of my nose. I was like, I'm so scared right now.
Is it like that video
okay, all right,
of that person be like, leave Brittany alone? They're like in a bed sheet.
No.
That was you?
I just tried to play it off, you know, like I told Diablo and Squid when they came home. I was like, yeah, I saw this thing jump out of the mirror. That was no big deal. When really I was hiding in my freaking closet underneath stuffed animals. Just kidding. That wasn't me. It freaked me out, dude, for real. I got another one for you I wanted to read. This one is, man, I don't even know if I could pronounce the person's name anyway, but a very interesting name. It says, I have a very scary memory, at least to me. I wanted to share with you. I only want to share what I saw and thought I remember. I was lying in bed with my younger sister. We were at a babysitter's house. I was on the left side of the bed, and my sister was on the right. The room was dim, like a nightlight was on, but still dark. My left hand and arm were under the pillow that my head was laying on. I was holding hands, but I remember thinking, whose hand am I holding? As I held up my right hand up in the air and looked at it. I woke up my sister and asked her, am I holding your hand? She said no, and I was instantly scared. I pulled my left hand out from under the pillow fast and picked up the pillow. All I saw was the outline of the mattress with a white sheet covering it, the bed frame, and the wall. So, and then they go on to tell a little bit more, but it's not necessarily the story. It's just she called her mom. Anyways, what do you think of that?
It sounds like a very lonely ghost. I mean,
that's creepy though. Can you imagine that coming? You know,
I actually can't, because I can't even imagine what I would do in a situation where, you know, I'm holding on to someone's hand and all. Yeah, it's bizarre to be like, because it's one of those things where it's like it's a fake out, you know, where like you believe something. So like, oh, this is what it is. This is, you know, my sister's hand, and she's like, oh no, that's not my hand. You're like, oh, then like that petrified fear is like, oh, what the heck is this then?
That's creepy. Mm-hmm. My mom used to tell me that she would always feel like somebody would sit on the bed, like in her room. Mm-hmm. And in the house she used to live in off of Schofield over here in Austin, I remember I had a little office there in her house, and I would keep my computer and I would do a lot of work. And she had an office, and she used the office, and so did I. But she had an office, and I would share it with her. And sometimes I would take a nap, and I didn't like. She had a spare bedroom, but I didn't like that spare bedroom. I didn't like that room. It creeped me out. I stayed in there a few times, and it bugged me out. So she would always be at work during the day. She was a workaholic, and she would go in at like 7 in the morning and get off at like 7 at night every day. She was an office manager for a big company at that time. And sometimes I'd go and I'd crash out in her room because she was at work.
And you didn't like sleeping in the
She'd be
spare?
like, did you sleep in my bed? No, of course not, Mom. Why would I go sleep in your bed?
You have a spare.
She had a really nice, very big, comfortable, awesome, comfortable bed. And so I would go in there, and Sweet Pea, our now deceased Chihuahua that died back last summer, poor little girl, she was my little baby, and she'd jump in the bed with me, and she'd lay there, and sometimes she'd start shaking and like she was whimpering, like she was having a nightmare. and I would wake up and I would feel like something was getting off of the bed, and then Sweet Pea would wake up. Like I didn't feel it getting on the bed, but I felt like pressure coming, like
something was
the
leaving.
the mattress. Anthony, you remember that house, right? And then that way the bathroom, she had that big bathroom. And sometimes when I would go in there and take a shower, I would hear footsteps, and my mom would tell me, because she lived alone and she would get creeped out, and she had a big house, and she would be like, "Do you ever hear anything in here?" And I'd be like, "Nope."
Your mom
I didn't want to freak her out.
Your mom didn't get nightmares though?
She did. Yeah, she had a few weird things that happened there. I saw a weird shadow one time in front of the garage that was really weird. But I've seen lots of weird stuff in my life. You know, it's spiritually weird stuff, and I can't explain.
I think you're attuned to it, man, because I've noticed.
Definitely.
Even at my old house, like you saw stuff like a lot, and you're like, oh.
Well, if it's around, I can feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there. I know.
And you mention it, and like, you know, and then I'll try to pay attention to it, but then it's like, I could just tell that you were more spiritually attuned than I was.
Mm-hmm. Your mom is too.
Yeah, my mom.
Your mom told me too. She's like, you see it, right? And I was like, I would see things. I've always been like that. I remember I took a shower in your mom and stepdad's bathroom one time. We were getting ready to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. I don't remember how old you were, but I remember I took a shower in there one time, and I felt like this cold gust of wind go through the whatever, you know. And your mom said it was just like, it's just passing through. She told me, I was like, because I came out and I told Chad, your stepdad, and I told Dal, your mom, I was like, there's something weird that just went through that bedroom and into the bathroom. I felt like a cold chill, and your mom was like, it's just passing through. And I was like, what? And your dad was just shaking his head, and I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, because I mean, there was weird stuff in that house. You saw weird stuff in that house,
and that is how my mom speaks. You know, she has a very thick accent,
mm-hmm.
but she's been here for a long time. So I mean, she can speak English well. It's just she can't get rid of that accent.
Yeah, whenever I tease her, she always says, "My English better than your Vietnamese," and I'm like, well, I'm not planning on going to Vietnam anytime soon, but if I do,
she tells me the same thing all the time. I'm like, oh,
I still think it's funny when you start speaking Vietnamese and people look at you like, whoa, that Mexican speak Vietnamese.
I find it funny when my mom speaks Vietnamese to me, and then like I'll speak back to her in English, and people are just looking like, what is going on? What is this weird? And I'm sure like a lot of American first generation kids, you know, go through the same thing where you take up English as your main language, but you're still able to speak it to your mom in a different, or your parents in a different language. And it's like she understands everything. It's like it's weirdly in tune.
Well, here's what's weird. I'll tell you another story, and I got this one along the line of ghosts. I guess it's a ghost. This was a high school prom that happened in Tennessee, and they went to a high school prom, and it was in a small town in Tennessee, and one of the girls got really distraught, got a little drunk, okay, because that happens at proms, and she went into the bathroom. You know how they have the proms like at the auditoriums or whatever.
Yeah, a different spot.
Yeah, and so they went to in an auditorium, and she went to the bathroom, and her friend went to help her. When they went into the bathroom, apparently this friend had been messed with by entities her whole life. Like she had problems, and she had abuse. She had suffered abuse at the hands of her stepdad and her stepdad. Well, I guess it would be her mom's boyfriend, whatever. And that later became her stepdad, but she was already grown when they got married. But he was abusive, and so it caused a lot of psychological problems. So the girl that told me this story thought, well, I thought that's what it was. Her friend's name was Misty. She said that I thought it was just she had psychological problems. And so she chalked it up to that. So when she'd go over there, stay the night with her and stuff, weird stuff would happen. Well, one of the things that happened when she was staying the night with her was that a poster that was on the wall caught fire, like spontaneously caught fire. I believe she said it was like some Lita Ford poster or something like that. And like, for folks who don't know, that's like a musician from back in the 80s and 90s. Lita Ford was like the first real female guitarist, I guess. But I think that's what she said it was. It was just some picture on the wall, and it caught fire, and she there were two other girls that were there that were brushing their teeth or whatever in the bathroom and whatever. And they honestly thought that they had lit it on fire, and they didn't. She said, no, I didn't. I saw it literally the corner just catch fire. And it was just weird stuff like that. Like she saw her dog get kicked and like fly up in the air, like the back legs, like somebody had kicked it in the hallway. And the whole time all this stuff was going on, they lived in a really old 100-year-old house in Tennessee. And the stepdad was, or what he became the stepdad, was a very cruel guy and was mean and was drunk. Was gone a lot, out running around and cheating on his girlfriend or whatever. So he was out carousing. And they would have fun there as long as he wasn't around. But then he'd come around and he'd start acting weird and talking to the girls and stuff. And then they didn't want to be around him. But he was out of town or something for a few days. So they had gone over there to stay with the mom and the daughter for the weekend because they were afraid in the house. So anyway, she ends up having like practically a nervous breakdown at prom. The guy that she was with left with another girl at the prom. So that compounded her misery and whatever. So she took this girl, Misty, into the bathroom. She walked in with her. And she says that when she did, the light started to flicker and go dim. And Misty started like going into a rage and screaming at the mirror and screaming, "This is all your fault. This is all your fault." And she said that while she did, the mirror turned like a smoky black, like it began to smoke and then like turn like it was smoking over.
Yeah, like fading.
Yeah. And then she saw this figure appear that looked like an old crone, and that gradually its head began to go backwards and develop horns, almost like goat-like horns coming off of a witch. And she said it was the scariest thing she ever saw, and she just like stood there in shock and like ran out and barely spoke to her friend, that friend again. Like over the years, her friend, I guess, worked at the Walmart or whatever, so she went up there every now and then and she'd see her and say hi and whatever, and they never talked about it again, ever. So that's crazy. That was a crazy story that was sent to me. And so what do you make of that? Very, very, very scary stuff.
And unfortunate, man. It just sucks that, some of these spirits,
they prey on people.
Yeah. And it just damages their lives, and they become different people because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it kind of, who knows what they could have done if they were able to just, not have to deal with that. Who knows what kind of repercussions and things that these spirits have changed and like actually done based on them, haunting and what is it? Just damaging these poor people. And it sucks that she did see it in the end. Like she finally saw like, hey, like she's actually going with something.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, the story is scary and it's sad at the same time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The only thing I could recommend is, maybe you said they were at the school auditorium or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had my problem at a hotel, and it was great. Nothing like that happened. So just, don't go to prom at a school auditorium.
Oh, wow. Okay. Maybe. So that's the great advice you're going to give people.
Yeah, that's my takeaway.
Yeah. And if you have a prom and you don't want to see a demonic witch turn into a goat man, then you don't go to an auditorium. Okay, folks, you heard it. Tony, he's spitting out gems of wisdom.
To those kids out there, right? If you don't want to see goat crone ladies,
that's right. And then also, while we're at it, let's just make fun of the kids that had the devil monkey experience.
Exactly.
They were drinking cheap beer and didn't offer them any.
You not only were you drinking.
Somebody in the comments said that they should have offered them sharing the beer, and it would have. I said, you know what? If you drink cheap beer out in the woods, you will be attacked by devil monkeys. Yeah, exactly. That's just the bottom line.
We warn them. Like we try. That's what's most important is we try.
And the kids in Mason, Texas, what made them? What caused them to have be attacked by a devil monkey?
They live in Mason, Texas.
Because they were shooting fireworks out the back of the truck?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying they live in Mason, Texas.
Well, this happened outside of Mason, Texas. So what happened?
They're close enough, I guess.
They were shooting fireworks, and the devil monkeys wanted them to take them.
No, I just think that they were close enough to Mason, Texas, where
wow, that's messed up. You're gonna bag on a city now.
I'm not. Folks, not the city.
This guy
There's
is
just insane, a lot of stuff.
Okay?
Oh, no, you know what?
This dude's terrible.
I was thinking, what was that place that Chief grew up?
Manor. I was talking about Manor.
I was thinking Manor.
Now, Chief will tell you that bridge, you go when you go across it all the time. Wilbarger Bridge, Wilbarger Bridge. Whenever you go further to the south, and there's another little bridge. Speaking of which, I'm going to do some work on the Hoxsey Bridge. There's a horseman, a headless horseman, that's said to run around on Hoxsey Bridge. Not far from Hoxsey Bridge, from where I grew up, there's another bridge called Black Bull Bridge, and I'll tell you a story about that. I told it on Vic's show, I believe, but a friend of mine's uncle, I'm a friend of mine's dad, who I call uncle, and y'all know him. I'm not going to mention his name on here, but he had an experience on that bridge. They call it Black Bull Bridge because sometimes people see a phantom bull on the bridge. And there have been people who have actually swerved off of it, like swerved and hit the rail trying to avoid this thing. And it just comes up out of the, and it's a steep drop off down into the water below. So the bull just comes out like it's coming out from the embankment, which is dang near impossible. But it comes off of the embankment and it just stands in the middle of the road, and people have like slammed on the brakes and then they've driven right through it. And then others claim that it's on one side of the bridge and they'll slow down and go by, and then it'll charge them, and that'll actually hit their car and make it'll make indentions in the car. It's not a real big bridge, but I took Nellie out there, my wife, and we went over it, and it was broad daylight. But I'm not going out there at night. I'm not crazy. But I took her to Goatman Bridge up in North Texas with Anthony. Remember Anthony? We went out there with her and her sister.
You guys had like a little sci-fi trip, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, we went out there to the Goatman Bridge, and I yelled at Goatman and threatened him and challenged him and threw a glow stick out into the water, and nothing happened.
Goatman, come attack me.
I don't know. I was watching some show about that Goatman Bridge, and there were these two guys that would go around.
The BuzzFeed one.
Is it BuzzFeed? And then I was like watching it, and the guy was like, F you, Goatman. I disrespect you. Yeah. So I went out there and was like yelling too, but nothing happened. So I was like, you know what? Goatman's just straight up buster, man. He don't know nothing. He didn't come out and do nothing. I'm not challenging you, Goatman. I'm just saying you didn't do nothing that day.
Right. I just think that Goatman is like, he doesn't wear his heart in his sleeve, and he's like, I'm not going to be worried about these peasants. I'm a Goatman.
Yeah, he was just that day. He was like, you know what? I'm not going to let your hurtful words get in my way of having a good day.
I think you probably messed them up for a couple of days. So he was like, oh man, I should have really attacked them.
But not far from there was like a bunch of people playing soccer, which to me is more terrifying than the Goatman, because I hate that sport and I hate people do it around me. I mean, it's just like terrible. I don't know.
I never had it. I was always like, we would be forced to play soccer in PE.
Oh God! But you had PE.
I was
in athletics. I hated.
I was in athletics too. But
my little friends played soccer when I was a kid, and then they wanted me to join, and I went, and there were boys and girls playing it, and I was like, "You're crazy." I refused to get out of the car. My mom started yelling at me to get out and go try out, and I was like, I don't want to. I'll just wait till Little Dribblers, which is basketball or baseball or football, come back, and I'll play that. But I'm not gonna. I just refuse to do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't play with little girls. I was like, I would play with other boys, but not little girls. Like, why are little girls on the team with us? I couldn't get over that. And ladies, it's no disrespect. I was like 7 or 8. Okay, I just didn't like soccer. And no offense to people who like soccer, but it's hard to watch because the people are so tiny on the screen. It's like so far away.
It's hard to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
I guess people could say the same thing about football, but me and you, we played football, so we know it. We can understand what's going on.
Yeah, you can see it.
But the one thing I will say about my time in PE playing soccer, especially, is like you don't know real joy when you're a goalie and you have like these kids just kicking balls and you're just slapping them away and catching them,
slapping them.
It just made me feel like I was like, yeah, I got this. I'm just better than you at this.
You were a receiver in high school, right?
Yeah, so I had hands. I mean, like I could catch these balls and like they're PE kids just kicking balls at me. I'm like, this is easy.
So, anyways, enough of that. Enough of the talk of the glory days of when Tony was a goalie that day in PE. So.
I wish I could go back to those times.
We're getting off track here, and we're going to get a bunch of horrible comments about how we're talking about other stuff. I'm going to take you to the island of Hawaii. Okay, guys? We're going to go to Hawaii. What is it, Tony? What do you want to talk about?
This episode has been very chillaxed. I've noticed it's very calm.
Really? Can we continue with it though? Because now you're getting you're what? You know what? Okay, Sal. Here we go.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. All right, get me off track here, dude. All right. So, anyways, what's happening is I'm trying to tell a story of that this guy was a waiter, and he waited on us at a local restaurant here in Austin. And I know, Anthony, you remember this. Tony, you might have been there. And he said he lived in Hawaii for years. And he said this happened on the Big Island, and that they were out in the bush, I guess, and running around doing whatever outside of town, and they were walking around, screaming and yelling and having fun and drinking and stuff. And he was with several of the native islanders, and they were all hanging out. He wasn't a native, whatever, but he lived there for I think he said 13 years. And they heard something crashing through the brush. And it came right up to the edge of the clearing of this trail where they were at. And they all stopped, and they turned and they looked, and they see this brownish, reddish beast, is the way you could describe it, with really long arms. It was leaned forward, and its arms were super long. It looked like a man, but it was covered with hair, and it had abnormally long arms that were reddish brown in color. Anthony, do you remember that? I think you remember that. The waiter told us that. So anyways, this guy told us this story, and he said that it stopped, and it had like the bottom teeth came up almost like tusks, and it had almost like a snout, but it was almost like a gigantic baboon looking creature. But it wasn't. It did not appear as like a baboon, because he said he 100% it was not a baboon. It did not have a tail, and it had shorter back legs than it did the front arms, almost like a gorilla. But and then the snout, he said, looked like a mixture between, like at the end of the nose where the nose should have been, was almost like a mixture between a hog and a wolf, if you can wrap your mind around that. Okay, and he said that it had really long arms. And he said that it just sat there and it stared at them, and then it like bluff charged them and like literally threw like debris at them in their direction. And he said he was with like 5 or 6 people, and a couple of them fell backwards trying to get away from it. And then they scrambled to their feet and they ran away. And he said that it was just like a terrifying experience, and it appeared like it was a physical creature. But he said as he turned to look back, like as soon as he turned, like it should have still been there. It was like gone, almost like it had just vanished. And he said he remembers it like clearly, and it had black eyes, and they had shined the flashlight on it, and the eyes, like it squinted its eyes, But he said that the way it disappeared was like, woof, it was gone, which made him kind of give pause and be like, what was that? Like, what is that? Haven't got any other reports really from Hawaii as far as like anything that even remotely looks like that. So I don't know what that was, but that was a pretty crazy story that was given to me, and the guy was pretty adamant that that's what he saw.
But you haven't heard anything similar to that?
No, not from Hawaii. I mean, as far as like saying are there threads where there's something that even looks like that? Yeah, I got one, and it's from the Ozarks, and it's a creature that kind of resembles that, but it had like these curled horns, kind of like a dog man mixed with a Bigfoot, kind of I guess like a gugwe type creature, I guess you would call it, as they're calling it, like a gugwe, and it had like these weird horns. And it was a hunter that was up in the Ozarks and at the edge of the Ozarks anyway. And he was out hunting, and he was getting in his truck, and something came out of the bush because he had killed a deer, and he thought this thing wants the deer. And it had horns. So long arms in the front, same color. The skin was black underneath the arms. That was the similarity. Didn't report tusks sticking out the bottom of it. Now, the natives that he was with said that, and if anybody's from Hawaii and you're a native and you have any stories about that, you can tell me what this thing was as far as the Hawaii version of it. Not confusing it with the one from the Ozarks. The one in the Ozarks had horns. The one in Hawaii had tusks. Other than that, the description was very similar. The guy from Hawaii, though, said it didn't have a tail. The guy from the one in the Ozarks said that he saw a tail like kind of moving back and forth around that looked almost like a wolf's tail, like a canine type, like
bushy
tail.
And stuff.
Yeah, but it had horns. Not real big, but he saw horns coming off of it, and he said
they curled or what?
Yeah, they curled. Yeah, but the one in Hawaii, he said that the natives told him that it was like a night spirit or a demon, like a guardian that protected that area that they were walking towards. And the area that they were walking towards was like they were getting into area where they weren't supposed to be going. And that's all he told him.
Maybe it is like a guardian spirit of a certain area. Maybe, there's, and the same thing in the Ozark. It's like it's a guardian spirit of just a certain area, and it just roams around. But why would it need the deer though?
That wasn't in Hawaii. That one was the one in Ozarks.
That's what I'm saying. Like the one in the Ozarks. Like, did it?
You think that one was a guardian spirit too?
Maybe if they're that similar, they'll basically just
very similar in its height. Now I'll give you the size dimensions of it. They both said that this thing weighed at least 500 to 600 pounds. The one and the guy in the Ozarks, he actually said 400 to 500 pounds. So I'm saying about 500 pounds, 5 to 6, 4 to 5. If you had to put a number on, that's what they told me. 6 foot at the shoulders on all fours. The one in Hawaii, the one in the Ozarks was about 4.5 foot at the shoulders. Both very muscular.
Yeah. Did it grab the deer though?
No, it did not. The back legs were normal as far as like they just went straight back. The one in Hawaii, the one in the Ozarks had just did not get a really good description of the back legs. I asked him if they could have been the way the dog legs are, and he said that did not get a good look at that.
Backwards bent or whatever?
No, he didn't see it. He said it might have. That's all he told me.
Well, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Well, not really. It's like, who really knows? But that would kind of explain this similar appearance in them is, guardian spirit. And that's just how they, like, maybe they're summoning something, like maybe it's like whoever wanted this thing to protect whatever it was protecting, maybe they summon it, and they both summon it from the same spot in different places, so that's why they look similar, and they just might have different.
So it was like a sentinel?
Explain that a little more for me.
Like a sentinel, like it was left to like protect something.
Who knows? Maybe the way back, either Hawaiians or whoever was in the Ozark at the time was like, hey, like this is very sacred ground that we like either did something here or we have something here, and why not have something protecting it? Because you're not always going to be around. And why not like summon the spirit that you could have that would keep people away from it, because they would see it and they would like, I don't want to be near that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just some crazy stories. We did that story on Halloween, a Halloween special we did, and we talked about Detroit, and we talked about a demonic dog that would attack people and appear to rip them apart, but then they would die, but there would be no damage done to them, and the autopsies would reveal that they were just killed by a heart attack. Like they had a heart attack.
Yeah, I remember like
their heart would stop, cardiac arrest / heart attack.
Hellhound, right? Like it was a hellhound attacking.
Well, somebody that grew up in Detroit, and they sent me a story, and they sent it to me because of that show that we did about the creatures in Detroit. And this one was crazy. This guy said that he was walking through, and he gave me a description of the area where he was at. I don't know much about Detroit, and it was on my email, and I don't even have the email now, but I remember reading the story, and I've had this one for a while, and I wrote down the notes. And he said that he was walking through Detroit. It was off of the 8 Mile, according to what he told me. I don't know a lot about Detroit or the whatever I've been through there, but he said that as he was walking, he turned the corner and he heard somebody yell like there was a struggle. And when he turned the corner, like a couple seconds later, he sees somebody leaned over another person, or what he thought, and the person's that was on the bottom, their legs were shaking, and the person that was on top was leaned down, and they had their head on top of this other person's face. And he said that when he turned the corner, this person that was like on the other person, he could see blood, and what he thought was blood. And so the person turned and looked, what he thought was a person turned and looked up at him, and the eyes were red. They were glowing red. But he said that it looked like there was like this glow about them, but they were black, but there was like a red glowing off of them. Now, he said that this person had blood all over their mouth, and it was dripping down onto their shirt. He said this happened to him when he was 17 years old. And he saw this person literally, what he thought was chewing on this other person's face. The person that he was on top of, it looked like they had eaten part of the body. and it looked like a homeless person that was being chewed on. The person that was on top of here's the most disturbing part about it was the person that was on top of him was a male that appeared to be pale skin, whatever, and he was nude. And he was straddled over this person. When the person stood up, he said that he saw, and he's still not 100% because he took off so fast to get away from it. He said that what he thought was where the feet were at the end of the feet, they kind of came down in like a triangle, like the balls of the feet were like triangular, and then it kind of came down into like these what looked like 3 or 4 toes, not like a full set of toes on the foot, and that the hand looked like it had long claws, and there was like this membranous wing looking thing, and he saw it on the right side. Other than that, it looked like a person. And he said that it had like what he looked like small fangs within the mouth of this thing, whatever it was, and that it turned and it looked up at him and it kind of hissed. And he just turned and ran, and he took off, and he was heading back to his place from a friend of his, and the friend lived not too far from there in a dilapidated house. And so he just said he kept running for like 3 blocks, and he just kept going. And then he said that later on he was on the porch of his friend's dilapidated, abandoned house that they were staying. His friend was kind of like squatting, I guess, but they were standing outside on the porch, and he was telling them about it, him and 2 other guys, and they heard this something fly overhead and screech. And they looked up, they didn't see it. They didn't see what flew overhead, but they said it screeched and it made like at first they thought it was like an owl, like just a screeching owl or something. That's what it kind of sounded like, but then it sounded like a human scream, and that echoed like really bad in between the abandoned houses that they were around. And he was convinced that was the creature. And he said that he thinks, and for whatever reason, that he got the image in his mind of this creature being angry that it was seen, but that the way that this thing moved, like he kind of like he felt like he locked onto, like kind of like connected with it, and that it was something that would like fly from like tree to tree, like a flying squirrel.
Yeah,
that's my words, not his. But like I asked him, I said like a flying squirrel, and he goes maybe. But like a lot more demonic and evil.
So it wasn't like meant for flying, more like gliding.
More like gliding. It can like jump, and it would like not take flight like a bird would, but it could like glide. And I thought that was just like the weird, and it almost sounded kind of like a rake type creature, but not exactly, because he said that this thing he thought that sound, that screech and then that scream had come from the creature that was eating the person in Detroit. I mean, in Detroit, off of the
8 Mile.
Yeah, 8 Mile. And so, I mean, it to me, it sounded like almost like some sort of like weird, like the Eastern Europeans, just Strigoi, like the weird vampire type creatures. I don't know, man. I was given a description of what these things supposedly look like, this Eastern European vampire, which is more of like a ethereal entity, but that it can appear as flesh. And a description was given to me from someone that was Eastern European that told me that this is what they think it was. And it's very weird. I mean, I don't know what that is. Not the first or last, I'm sure, that we've ever heard of these things, these weird pale-looking creatures that run around in the night. Well, I don't want nudist glider, but that run around at night attacking people. I mean, and he said that it would be a prime hunting ground for something like that because it was a bunch of abandoned houses and there was nothing there. In that little spot where he was at, it was like an abandoned neighborhood, and it wasn't too far from where he was living at the time. And he said that he quit walking around at night for one thing, but that this thing, it was chewing on somebody. And he said when he lifted up his face, he could see the throat and the face of the person was chewed on, was gone.
Like fangs, like multiple fangs, or was it like a biting?
He didn't say. He just said small fangs in its mouth.
I mean, it definitely didn't seem like a vampire or anything if it was actually like chewing and eating a person like that. Do
you tell
vampires
me.
even drink blood?
I have no idea what vampires do and don't do. I don't know what werewolves do and don't do. All we have are stories and speculation. I mean, and who's to say that that's even what that was? I mean, what if that's a city-dwelling Wendigo for all we know?
What if like that? I was going to say like, oh, it can't be a vampire because it wasn't drinking blood. But I'm like, do we even know that? Like
a Wendigo would eat flesh. Yeah.
What was with the wings then? The gliding wings.
You got me. I mean, it's just another one of those weird, mysterious creatures that we hear about. You know, it could have been a Wendigo, could have been a skinwalker, it could have been a vampire, could have been, you know. I can't really say it was a flying humanoid because him and his friends didn't actually see it fly. He just assumed that it first he was saying, yeah, it had to be the same creature, but I was like, did you see it? And he didn't really see it fly. So you can't really say that it's a flying humanoid, can you? It's just he assuming that that's what it was. It flew over the building that he was at. I mean, there's no way to know.
Also, I mean, like when you say, just a quick question, when you say it was like this thin membrane, was it connecting the bottom side of the hand to like the armpit area?
He didn't get such a good look at it. I mean, it was real quick. He said that it looked like a membranous, like almost like thin layer of skin that went from the bottom of the arm, like, you know, to connected, kind of went in a triangle down. Now, I gave you a story and then I compared that last story to something. I'll do the same thing with this one. I was working with a security guard years ago. His name is Sean. He was a friend of mine. Don't know whatever happened to him. I've lost touch with him. It was him and a guy named Zach that I used to work with. And we worked in a building that I will talk about one day. I will do a show about it eventually. It's going to probably take up the whole show. And it was haunted. A lot of weird, crazy stuff went on in that building. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was a terrifying place. This is a story that the guy Sean told me. He worked security with me. I was a very young guy. I think I was probably all of 18. First security job I ever got. You know, I was making maybe $6, $5 an hour. I was in the early 90s or something. I don't remember exactly what year, but I worked with these guys, and one of them had some pretty creepy experiences in that building. And the other guy, he said, I've had a couple, you know, and that was after I had talked to them when I started having some weird stuff happen to me. And I was going to save this one for a time whenever I did the show about that building, but I'll just tell you this one right now. There was an area of this building. It used to be First State Bank on 15th and Guadalupe. Now it's something else. But there was a spot that I used to like to go sleep, and it was in this dentist's office, of all things. And that was a spot where they had a really comfortable couch, and you could sleep in there. And so we had to be up in the tower, as they called it, for 2.5 hours. So I would always go up there and sleep in the dentist's office, and I was told about that by the other 3 guards that worked in that building, and one of them was this guy Sean, and he told me that he goes, yeah, one night he was up there asleep in the dentist's office, and we couldn't sleep for very long. We had to finish our rounds, but because if you were on one floor for too long, it would record it, and it would show on the computer to show that you did your little detects. You would stick a little key in the wall and turn it, you know, and then it would go to a computer readout. It would tell it would know that you were on that floor. You know what I mean? And even back in the 90s, the technology was there to know where you were at. You know, it didn't have a GPS, but when you turned that little deal, it would show up that you were on that floor at that time. So if you stayed more than 30 minutes on the floor, you better have a good reason. So I'd set my little wristwatch, you know, and it would go beep, 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 and I would get up and go do my rounds. I know I'm telling you guys this, and y'all work for me and doing security, and I hope y'all don't get any ideas. But anyway,
1 second, let me write this down.
Yeah, well, you already know how to. I'm sure you're already doing whatever. But anyway, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, anyways, this guard that I worked with, he was up there, and he did the same thing. He had a little alarm clock, whatever, and he set it. And he said, so about 15 minutes into his little nap, he hears boom, boom, and he wakes right up, and he just bolts right up, and something hit the window. Now, this was on the 11th floor. I believe it was I'm sorry, folks. It was the 12th floor. The 11th floor was really creepy. The 12th floor. And so it was a really tall building. I think it was 17 stories or 18 stories and a penthouse at the top. And so he hit, something hit the glass. And when he sat upright, he said he couldn't believe what he was looking at. He saw this like pale, translucent looking creature stuck to the glass. But it didn't have a head. At first, it had a head, but he didn't have a face. And he said where the face should have been, it was just a plain, like just white. It was just a white, plain, like just blank. There was nothing there. And he said that he stood there looking at it for a minute and wondering what it was. And now he was in what would have been the waiting room. And then with the door open, he could look through into the dentist, into the little hallway, and then down into the back room. The door was open, and there was another room back there. There was like 2 or 3 little offices or whatever you call them, with chairs where people would sit and get treated or whatever. And I think there were a couple dentists that actually worked out of that office. So you could look down the hallway straight past that where that little couch was. Now, I had a weird experience sitting on that couch, laying on that couch too one night. I'll get into that one day when I tell the story of that place. And he saw this weird looking, like white, translucent looking creature stuck to the glass. He said it wasn't real big, about 4 feet, It didn't have legs or arms that he could tell, but it was just like stuck to it. So he started walking toward the glass to make sure that he could get a good look at what he was looking at. And he flicked the light switch on to go into the hallway. And that's when it turned. And then what he thought was where its face should have been was the back of its head. This thing turned its head all the way back around. It could swivel its head like an owl. And it turned and it looked right at him. And he said that it had red eyes, and this face, like the head was like a mouth, was like the mouth of a leech, like a sucker with a bunch of almost like round, Well, he described it as kind of oval sideways. And like there were like teeth in it, little small jaggedy teeth. And he said that this thing, like these 2 twig looking things popped out the bottom of it with like legs. And that it just sat there looking at him, and it had red eyes. And he said that it made a connection with him too. Like it made him think, that it was like he felt like it was showing him itself. Like, oh, I can get you if I wanted to. Like it was telling him that, and you better watch it. Like it was warning him. Because he's seen it, and he thought instantly that this thing ate human flesh. And he never knew why that made him feel that way. Now, for years and years and years, I had that story, and I never knew what to make of it because there was so much weird spiritual energy there and weird activity that went on. I just assumed that it was another one of these ghost type entities that just was, doing whatever it does. But he was adamant that this thing was completely physical, like it was a physical creature. And so when he shined his flashlight on it, it like flew off the wall and just kind of went like it began to drop, like almost like a stone coming off of the wall. So he walked over to the window and he looked down and he saw it, and then it just kind of opened up, kind of like it had like wings, but not like a bird or even a bat. He said that it was kind of like a glider, and then it kind of glided and it landed on the other building across the street.
Like a fleshed glider?
Like a fleshy, pale glider. And I had always wondered about that, and then I got this story from Detroit, and now I had another one that was similar to that too. That was, I don't know what this was, but it was something that was very similar to that, but it was in the woods. And I'll save that one for another time. But I'm jumping around here because this is a potluck, so I'm going to tell you another story. Now, this one is more than likely a Bigfoot story. There was a guy who was hunting, and he was up in Wyoming, and he had gone off with his little brother and taken him hunting. He was only like, I think 19 or 20, and he had a little brother that was like 13 or 14. If I remember correctly, I think he said it was going to be his 14th birthday or whatever. So he took him hunting up in Wyoming, and they were stalking a deer. They were bow hunting, is what I believe he told me, and that they had caught a couple deer moving in and out of the area where they were at, and there was one that was just around the side of a tree, so they were moving in the direction to go and kill it. And so they had to go around the other side of a tree that they were by, and they were being very quiet and stealthy and whatever. And out of nowhere, this giant, he said it was like, had to have been 8 feet tall, brown fur. He said it was just like a brown fur, but in patches, it was like rusty color. And it came out of nowhere, just came out of the brush, like out of like literally behind some brush that was like looked like fallen tree logs or whatever. And it came right out as soon as they were about to shoot it. And it literally grabbed the deer by the back of the leg so fast that all it looked like was a blur. And it picked it up and slammed it into a tree. And literally blood shot out of this deer's mouth. And it was just instantly dead. And he said that this was a buck, no small deer. And he said that this thing that grabbed it was probably 8 foot tall and probably weighed 600 pounds. And just smashed it against the tree and then looked right at him. And when it saw them, and it just stood there holding the deer by the back of the legs and was just staring at them. And they both had their bows leveled, and it just began to slowly back away, going into the brush. And then they heard like a twig snap to the right, and they look, and there was another one, but it wasn't quite as big as the first one. And they said that this thing opened its mouth, and it like let out a howl, like a howling like scream. And it like went through their bodies. They could feel like what he said. I could feel my organs jiggle. That it was like, and it looked like a Sasquatch, like you would hear about a Sasquatch. He said it looked like a cross between an ape and a prehistoric man. And he said that this thing was just standing there and just screamed at him, and he said that was their cue to leave. And so he grabbed his little brother, who was at that point crying and was freaking out and was shaking and literally, let go of the arrow, and it like flew into the ground. And he was like, let's go. And so they just started slowly backing away, getting out of the area. And he said they walked backwards. And then they heard something like a movement, as in the direction that they were walking backwards. And they turned around, and right there, about 2 feet away from them. And they said the smell was terrible. Like there was an awful stench of like rotting flesh and death, and just like sulfur. And he turned around, there was one that was standing right in front of him that was bigger than both the others, and that it was black, and that you could see more of the face of this one because they were up close. And they said that the brow ridge was huge and pronounced, and the eyes were kind of sunken in, and that it had like on one side of its face was like a droopy, like the lips were drooping, like it was like something was wrong with it. And he said that it looked right at him, and it just made this growling noise, and then it hit its chest like a gorilla would. And he said you could feel it go through your face. And he said that all they could do was just sit there and cower in fear. And eventually they all just moved back into the woods and just left them sitting there. And he said, I felt like, my legs were jello and I was like a puddle of goo. He was like, I couldn't move. And I just sat there. And he goes, I put my bow and arrow down. And then, once he did that, they backed off. And he said that it was the most terrifying thing that ever happened to him in his life. I asked him too, if anything ever come close to that. Now he said that one time, when he was a kid, they went to a resort or whatever, and they were messing with lions. They were feeding the lions, whatever. And one of the lions was close to the fence. It was like lions and tigers, whatever. And one of them let out a roar, and he said he felt it, and it was like, but it wasn't nowhere near what this thing was. And he remembers like being up close to like some buffalo in that same park or whatever. And that it reminded him of that. Like if you took the roar and the terror from that tiger and put it into a buffalo, that's what this thing was like. I just, horrifying experience, to be 19 and your little brother with you. And of course, his little brother never wanted to go hunting again.
Can you imagine if they just kept walking a couple more feet and bumped into that thing?
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? I couldn't even imagine that, dude. I mean,
it's like a horror movie thing. We're like,
I mean, it's horrible. I mean, it's horrifying. I can't even think of it. Well, and whenever I ask people, about if they feel threatened, did it feel like something talked to you in any shape or form, I'll ask a lot of weird questions like that seem weird, but I mean, it is pertinent to what I'm saying. I'll get responses that run the gamut from no and to, yeah, it was telling me all kinds of stuff, and like you never know what you're going to get. And so those go along with the threads because you get like people who say that they see these certain types of creatures and other people who say that they do and they don't. It doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't feel like anything at all. It's just there. So, I mean, like you don't know what you're going to get. But when you have two stories that are very similar in nature to this guy who did not see it fly, but was pretty sure it had some sort of, flying mechanism. And then and it was being threatening, like telepathically, or sort of like, I guess you call it telepathically. And then the other one was like, he saw this creature, and it was just, what was creepy about that one on the bank building was that it was like on the window, and that it popped out these little leg type, appendages.
What's creepy is the whole damn thing. The fact that it's basically just a giant slug leech. Can you imagine a leech? Leeches creep me out anyway. The slimy, and they suck blood, and they just stick to you. But imagine something human-sized with eyes, and it can just...
He didn't say it was human-sized.
Well, how big was it?
I think he said it was like 4 foot.
Oh, okay. Well,
but I mean, that was without the legs and the arms. Though,
Yeah.
with the legs and the arms, it might be bigger,
But still, it's abnormally huge, and that would... Something like that attacking you would be oh my god, it's scary to think about. And the other thing, still a bit fearful, but at least it looks humanoid. Some like the weirdness of the leech thing just creeps me out so much, because it's like, where can you find that really anywhere else? Like your brain won't be able to comprehend it correctly because you're not going to see anything else like that. And even some of the other things, like a part of me can be like, oh, I can understand how if you see the thing that the guy saw in Detroit, you'd be like, oh, that looks like another guy, that looks like a person, just a naked male, until it turns around and does whatever it does, then you really get freaked out. But when you just see like this weird fleshy blob on your window, you're walking around in this creepy building as it is, you see a weird fleshy blob, and you're like, oh, what the heck is that? Like, what kind of flies just swatted onto the window? That's always been a fear of mine, is like to see something weird while I'm at work, or to see something scary. Because
I've worked posts where that's happened. So
yeah. Thankfully, it's a couple of things, but nothing like jarring like that, to where someone's like, oh, that's very bizarre, and that's something that will,
Well, that particular guard didn't really have a lot of ghost stories like the other guards did. They had a lot of weird, like spiritual type stuff that you could say happened to him. He had that, and then he had one kind of ghost story, and that was it. But that was like a physical thing. It was just weird. I don't know what that was.
Sounds demonic, to be honest.
Demonic, yeah. I mean, it was
flying.
Well, when we get into that building and we talk about that building one day, you'll see all the weird stuff that I remember going on there.
Yeah, I remember you telling me those stories, so I'm excited about that, to get to digest it all. And
yeah, you've heard a bunch of them already, and I've talked to Chad about it, and so we've gone over a lot of that stuff that happened to me when I was young, and then living in that house, I did for a long time. It was and eventually we're going to talk about the church building, and what happened to me and Scorpion in that church. But folks, that's all the time we have for tonight, and I hope you enjoyed our offering of Paranormal Round Table tonight. So thank you for joining us once again. Please like and subscribe, even if you listen to us on a different platform than YouTube. It helps us out if you subscribe and you like. And remember to go to our website and check out our merchandise and everything else and whatever. So for whatever spaceship you've been abducted by, and whatever Bigfoot's chasing you up a tree,
whatever flying leech is latched onto your back,
or your building, you run in terror from it, and it's still on your back, and you don't realize it's on your back until your blood is all gone, and then you lay there.
Whatever. Hawaiian guardian spirit.
Good night.